Hello, Earth Angels, and welcome back to another episode of Alignment Academy. It is your host, Kristen, and I'm literally so excited to be back with you for another week, another episode. And I just have a little itty bitty feeling in my stomach that this one is going to be one that a lot of you resonate when it comes to being on the spiritual path and feeling like you are just getting pummeled by life. So what we're going to be talking about today is rock bottoms. We're going to be talking about a little bit about breakups and really building and rebuilding your life from the ground up, because I think that when you're on the path to evolution and spiritual growth, it requires your soul to be a little bit stronger than maybe someone who's just floating through life. The way that Source God speaks to us, the way that it allows us and makes us move sometimes is through pain. And I know that's annoying. Like, why do we have to go through pain? But think about it. When we're not in pain, we don't move. We don't make any moves. Like, we don't change our life at all. And so I'm going to have a really beautiful, candid conversation with one of my best friends, Natalie Waller. She is a holistic coach and a breathwork guide. She is truly one of the biggest blessings in my life. Came in at the most divine timing, and I feel like I just want to talk with her and tell you guys the story. So without further ado, welcome to Alignment Academy, Natalie.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I feel like it's a long time coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to share a little bit about how we met each other, because I feel like it was a huge manifestation for both of us. I remember making a TikTok video about our meeting, and the TikTok was like, what's for you can't miss you. And when you're supposed to meet someone, like, God will put that person in your life in a lot of different ways until you meet. And I feel like that was like how our meeting was.
It was so kismet. It was meant to be. And right after we met, we knew immediately that we were meant to be in each other's lives.
Yeah. And like, honestly, I remember writing in my journal before I met you, like, I need a best friend that like can relate to me and like I can move through this time period with. So let me just like set the scene for you guys. Okay. When I went through my breakup, I was living in San Diego. And then when it happened, I moved home to Florida for 4 months because I was not in good shape. And then when I came back to California, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I needed to live. I didn't know anything. Like, I just was like a lost puppy, honestly. So I actually moved back to Orange County to be with my best friend Bree at the time. And I just didn't end up liking Orange County. So I was like there for 3 months. And then I moved down to San Diego, but I moved into a completely different part. So this is like, just setting the scene. It's like 7 to 8 months after my breakup. I should be over it, but like, I'm not. Like, I'm very much just in bad shape. And I have just now moved to a new city. So like, I'm in the really early rebuilding stages, and I would like needed to bring more characters into, like, I had no friends. And honestly, it is not a good time to have no friends when you're going through a freaking rock bottom.
Yeah. So I feel like I've never asked you this. Like, what prompted you to get on Bumble in the first place?
So yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I cut forward. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did cut forward. It's okay. So how we met is basically I needed new friends, and I got on Bumble BFF, and I was like, I need to make some freaking friends because I don't know anyone down in the city. Like, I knew people up where I used to live in San Diego, but like, I didn't know anybody in my area. So I was like, I actually have made friends on Bumble BFF before. And like, honestly, if you guys are looking for friends, like, you can find friends on Bumble BFF. Like, I met one on here. So anyway, we started talking, and I'm very like selective when I look on Bumble BFF. Like, I have to make sure you're spiritual. I have to, like, like, I just kind of intuitively catch the vibe, but you never know. I've had some weird eggs on there as well. And so we get on Bumble BFF and we match, and we were planning on meeting up. And then I'm in this other like spiritual WhatsApp group in San Diego, and I see her name, and I just message her, and I'm like, wait, I feel like we just matched on Bumble BFF. LOL, like, you're in this group too. And so you can tell it from your side too.
Well, it's interesting because on the other spiritual WhatsApp group, I don't think I had ever typed in it before. And I don't even remember what I said, but for some reason that day we had matched earlier, maybe the day before. And then I typed in the group, which again, I never do. And you were like, this is so weird. Like, the universe has tried to bring us together twice. And then we went to dinner that night and just immediately clicked. Like, immediately we were just like magnets because we were going through the exact same thing at the exact same time. I went through a breakup a few months after yours, but like we were in the same boat of just heartbreak, rock bottom, and feeling really, really lost. And we just unloaded on each other.
Yeah, we like for sure just completely trauma dumped on each other. And like I feel like we skipped all of the small talk. We were like, okay, so this is what happened. This is where I'm at. And honestly, when you're in a rock bottom, like low key, that's like what you do is like it's like all you can talk about. Which is honestly a conversation for another time because after a while we didn't let ourselves talk about it anymore. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so back to the story. We go to dinner and we just like immediately are like, okay, yeah, this is my new friend. And then we just started hanging out.
Yeah. Well, so I was in the exact same boat. I had a few friends, but like you kind of mentioned, when you're going through something that difficult, it's hard to relate to other people because they're not going through it and you're in so much pain and you're so lost and you're so confused that if you don't get it, you just don't get it. And because we were on the same page, it was just so immediate. And so, yeah, I feel like our friendship went from 0 to 100 really fucking quick because we had no one else in our lives that could feel what the other person was feeling.
Yeah, and it's like you can't even blame other people because even right now, like being really happy in my life, I almost can't relate to that version of me that was like so low and heartbroken and like walking around as a miserable person. Like I feel like it's such a different vibrational plane. Like you can have empathy and sympathy for that person, but you can't really understand what they're feeling.
I completely agree because I remember going through it and I was like, I'll be able to help anyone going through a heartbreak after this because I know what it feels like. But I completely agree. Even if I see someone that's going through a really, really difficult time, because I'm out of that space, I do still have more of a difficult time relating. But when you're there, there's just nothing that anyone else can really try to say that will make you think you're on the same page. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I just remember my mom being like, I get it. I've been there. I know this feeling. And I'm like, you don't. I'm sorry, you don't because you're not in it right now.
Yeah.
And that's why it was so special with us.
And I think like a rock bottom can be more than a breakup, right?
Oh,
like,
yes.
I feel like you could have, I mean, like just to give some examples, like maybe it's a breakup. And I think in our cases, it was unexpected breakups. Like we were both really blindsided, but like it could be a loss of a job. It could be a death in the family. It can be even like a pet loss. Like I feel like there's a lot of moments in life that kind of bring us to our knees. And I think in those moments though, on a soul level, they're so freaking important for your soul growth and your soul evolution. Like I feel like that was like a pivotal moment in both of our journeys. And I feel like I'm so proud of us when I look at us now and I'm like, wow, we've really come out on the other side and we did not think we were going to get out of it. Like I remember being like us looking at each other and being like, do you think we're ever going to be okay again? And yeah.
Well, and it lasted a long time too. Like we were going through that for at least a year. And that's when we were like, is this ever going to end? Because it doesn't feel like it does, but it will. Yeah. And another thing I wanted to say is about the like vibrational frequency, because when I was going through my breakup, I had also lost some friends. They had just moved away. I just quit my job, so I lost my job. And so it really can be anything. But like you said, it's that frequency of just really low vibration. And again, like I said before, just feeling extremely lost.
Yeah, no, for sure. So just to give a little background on your story, why don't you share a little bit about like kind of what happened to you so that they can just kind of get to know?
Yeah. I mean, basically what I just said. So I had a boyfriend. I had been dating him for a year. I was madly in love. I thought we were going to get together or stay together forever. He blindsided me and I felt extremely, extremely lost. At the same time, 2 of my best friends had just moved away. So I lost 2 out of 3 of my best friends. And at the same time, I was trying to find a virtual job to see my long distance boyfriend at the time. And I decided to quit it to get another job. And then he broke up with me around the same time. So all these things were happening at once. And I felt like the rug had been pulled out from underneath me so deeply. And I was on what I felt like on my own for months at a time, just in such severe pain. And when you're in so much pain, just like don't know what direction to go, it's almost debilitating. And I was trying so hard to get myself out. But one of the things I learned is like, you can try to do everything to get out of that pain, and you also just have to go through it. Because we've talked about this. You and I, once we met each other, we were doing everything we possibly could to heal ourselves and feel better and do better and improve our lives and learn from this horrible situation.
We were trying to make meaning out of like anything.
We were.
We were doing the most.
We really were. We were trying as much as we possibly could have. And it still took us a good year to like
a little bit more.
Yeah, I think more too. I think
Like
year and a
a year and a
half.
half.
I mean, for me to like truly feel over that whole situation, almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Almost 2 years.
Unfortunately. And I think that there was also like some deep rooted, I don't know, speak about like the codependence that you realized you had, because I feel like one thing that I was always really proud of you for doing is like you forced yourself to go do a lot of things alone, even when you didn't want to. And I felt like that was like a big part of your journey. And I think that's honestly one of the things that a lot of people have to learn on the spiritual path is like learning how to kind of like do things alone, right? Because rock bottom aside, when you start the spiritual journey and it's like so wildly different than anything that your friends are doing, it's like if you want to go be in community, you got to go to that like random sound bowl healing alone. Like you got to go to that yoga class alone. And it's like, it's scary. You don't want to go. You would rather be home, but it's like, it's kind of a muscle you have to build.
Yeah. Okay. So I could dive into this for a long time, so I'll try to make it short.
No, you don't have to make it short.
But the biggest thing that I learned from my rock bottom was how codependent I was and how much I was sourcing all of my worthiness, all of my validation from anything and everything outside of me. And it all started because when I went through the rock bottom, I felt so unbelievably broken. And I remember thinking, this doesn't feel normal. Like I shouldn't be feeling this much pain.
Yeah.
This like shattered because of a breakup. Like you hear of breakups all the time. And yes, the other things happened, but I intuitively knew there was something much deeper going on. Like this isn't just a breakup. So I did a lot of subconscious work, subconscious meditation. I found breath work and was just doing a lot of work internally. And what I found was I had such low self-worth that I was gaining all of it, all of my validation, starting from when I was young with friends, with my best friend, with family, and then it turned to be my boyfriend. And when I went through it, immediately I was like, okay, I need to build my self-worth up, build how I feel up from the inside. And the way that I did that was by getting really clear on, okay, what brings me joy? What is something that I want to do? And then I just had to go do it, because that was the other problem. Like before the breakup, I had all these things I wanted to do and I would ask my friends, let's go do this, let's go do that. And nobody would go with me and I'd be like, okay, fine, I just won't do it.
What's an example of that?
Okay, so surfing. My friends would never go surfing with me. I started going surfing on my own and like learning surfing on my own, which is like hard.
Yeah, like honestly, I don't know if I would even do that.
It was hard and scary, but that was the thing. And I figured out, I was like, I have to do this scary thing because that is what gives me confidence and that is what gives me self-worth on the other end. So,
amen.
Yeah. Surfing, I would go to museums by myself.
Wow. I think this is like a little too before I met you. So like,
yes,
I'm here to
no, this was before I met you.
Yeah.
I would go to museums by myself. I started rock climbing by myself because that was something I always wanted to do. Nobody would go with me. I'd never taken a solo trip before. I took some solo trips. Like I was just so on the level of I have to do me and only me. And that was kind of the problem too with finding friends, is I was so in the zone of like, I've been relying on everyone else so much that I just have to go all in on me. And so I did.
I'm going to make a quick assumption about you if you listen to Alignment Academy, the podcast, that ever since you were little, you just had this deep feeling that you were meant for big things in this world. You weren't here to be ordinary, but you were here to be a mover and a shaker. Hi, I'm Kristen, and same. Except for years, I was self-sabotaging because even though I felt in my soul that I was here to do extremely big things. I could not stop procrastinating, self-sabotaging, feeling massive amounts of imposter syndrome, and don't forget getting triggered as fuck every single day of my life. And honestly, I didn't know what to do. And then I found inner work. I found energy healing. I found all of the modalities that I still use today. The spiritual tools that I use feel like I found a hack to this universe. Like, the rules don't apply to me because I know how to shift my vibration. I know how to reprogram my subconscious mind. I know how to give myself any beliefs that I want to believe about the world, like money comes easy to me and the rules don't apply to me and I don't need a real job. These are all just beliefs that I believe about myself. If you're similar to me, you know you have a big mission, but you know it's also time to get out of your own way and heal your blocks for good so you can actually just take action on your mission. This is why I created Alignment Academy, the membership. Inside this membership, you are going to get everything from live coaching sessions with me monthly, all of my best-selling heart work meditations and hypnosises. You're going to get all of my energy healing activations to do energy work on yourself anytime you want. Not to mention, as soon as you enroll, you get a library of 9 past masterclasses and 8 on-demand meditations. But the very best part is the people in the community. This is some of the most heart-centered, amazing humans I've ever come in contact with. Honestly, people have made friends in this group. They've met up in person in this group. It's the place to be. This is seriously the only space on the internet that weaves quantum manifestation, inner work, and business to help you quantum leap in your soul's growth and your business growth. If you're serious about healing, getting out of your own way, and taking massive action this year, then join with the link below. See you inside.
When you first realized, like you said you were like, I was sourcing my validation from my friends. I was sourcing my validation from my boyfriend at the time. Like, what did that really like look like in 3D? Can you give an example of that for anybody who's like, wait, I feel like I might be a little codependent and also doing that? Like, what symptoms can they look for? Yeah. So the first, like before my boyfriend, I really I didn't recognize it at the time, but looking back, I was very codependent on my best friend. I wouldn't do anything without her because I didn't want to feel alone. I didn't want to try anything new and feel embarrassed. It was just very much doing what my best friend wanted to do and only doing those things if she would do them with me. And then with the relationship part, I just remember at the beginning of the relationship feeling so good about myself because he was constantly telling me like, you're this, you're that, you're great, you're so cool, like all these things. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I am. Like, thank you. And then when that was taken away, I felt like shit about myself. Yeah. And so that was the key of like noticing when someone would compliment me or like give me validation about anything about myself, feeling on top of the world. But then if you're not getting that, feeling like shit about yourself. Yeah. That was how it came through for me.
And I think that there's so much to be said about like doing the scary thing, right? And like the way that I teach this inside of my programs is I'm like, okay, we have to understand like what your edge feels like. Your edge feels like this is really fucking scary. And I know like I can do it, right? We don't want it to like push us out of regulation where we're like so closed off because we just did something that's so scary. But I think like what I'm hearing from you is like you would find your edge and then you would force yourself to do it. On the other side, you would build confidence and you would build self-worth. And honestly, confidence and self-worth is built through like repetition of you doing hard and scary things over and over and over again. It's interesting the reason I want to speak to this is because this is not something that you can learn in a course. This is not something that you can read in a book and you build confidence. Like I can tell you all the tips and the tricks and the ways to build confidence, but like there is just so much wisdom in you doing the fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, you can read all the books, you can take all the courses, you can do everything, but like it's about you doing the thing.
No, exactly. It's all about action. It's all about action. And I think you make a really good point of like knowing what is right for you. And so that was another piece of like really going inward and like connecting with my intuition and being like, what do I want to do that's scary versus like, I have no desire to do that. That doesn't call to me. And so it's finding that balance too of like what calls to me and feels scary versus that's not for me. And it's learning that too.
That's such a good point too, because I think that like honestly, sometimes building your identity and like knowing who you are low-key takes like trial and error, right? Like the way that I teach it in my programs, when people are like, okay, how do I find who I am? I'm like, well, think about how a child finds out who they are. Like they try soccer and then they try ballet. Then they say, I like this, I don't like that. And I think that sometimes when you're rebuilding your identity, right, you're rebuilding your self-worth, the way that you do it is like go to the yoga class and you might not like it, but you might fall in love with it. And like, don't think that just because you didn't like it, it's a failure, right? Like, do kids say like, oh my God, I hated piano, that means I'm a failure at life? Like, no, it just means that like, that's not your thing and like try something else. But I think that humans, adults in particular, are kind of like, they hate failing. They hate like not liking things and they think something is wrong when that happens. And I think that you go through something that's like really shattering to your identity. There is this period where you have to re-find who you are without that thing. And I remember too, like when I just had gone through the breakup, there were even like parts of myself where I was like, do I like this article of clothing, or was I just wearing it to look like I matched my partner? Like there was a lot of moments where I was like, who am I? Like, and I remember having to really work hard at finding my style again because, you know, my ex was like really in like a fashion industry. And so like definitely not in the spiritual industry. And so I remember wearing a lot of clothes so that I could like look like I belonged with him. And then when I got out of that relationship, I kind of went really like flowy and spiritual because I was like, okay, well, I don't need to dress like that anymore. So I'm going to dress like this. And also my friends dressed like that. So I was kind of like finding myself with that. And then now I feel like I've gotten a really good balance where I sometimes dress really spiritual. Sometimes I dress like normal, like this. Like it just kind of depends. But there is a trial and error aspect to finding your identity that I think is not spoken to.
I 100% agree with that. And to your point of the childhood stuff, when I was trying to figure out who I was and find my self-worth, I would hear a lot, okay, what did you like to do as a child? What did you love as a child? But I realized I've been so codependent since I was a baby that I didn't even know really what I liked to do as a kid. And that was really earth-shattering to me. And I also think what you like and what your identity is can change. Like who you are when you were pre-rock bottom versus who you are post-rock bottom can change. And so that's why the trial and error is so important, because maybe you didn't like it before and maybe you like it now. Like for example, I used to take piano lessons a lot as a kid and I hated them. After my rock bottom.
You did do piano. I remember having, you had a piano in your old apartment.
I had a piano. I took piano lessons. I started learning how to play the piano. So that stuff can change. And so even if you think you hate something, I would say give it a try if you like feel a little bit of a call, like a little bit of a whisper. That's all you need, in my opinion.
I also think that there is a real sacredness to that period between breakup and new relationship that I don't think is spoken to a lot. Like me and you were talking about this last night, that like, how do I say this in a way that I feel like is not gonna trigger people? I feel like in between your relationships is where you can do a lot of healing, really deep, like personal healing, a lot of independence healing, like a lot of deep healing. When you enter that new relationship, you're almost unconsciously entering the contract with that other person of like, this is who I am, this is who you are, and this is who we are in this dynamic. And unless you both are extremely like conscious and are able to evolve together, I think that it kind of staggers your healing journey a little bit. And you don't really get the opportunity to go deep, deep, deep into your healing until the next time you're single. And the reason I just want to speak to this is because, you know, I used to have a lot of shadow around being single. Like I used to, and you know, I've like worked on this so much and I've told my community about this like a little bit, but like I used to have so much shadow around being single. I was like, something's wrong with me. But something that I've been kind of contemplating lately about my journey is like, it's interesting because I did a lot of healing before my past relationship, and I thought I had healed a lot of my father wounds. I thought I had healed a lot of like a lot, and I did heal a lot of my anxious attachment. I did heal a lot of my father wound. But with these core wounds that we have in this lifetime, like there's just always more layers. There's deeper layers. And also the deeper you are on, think your soul's journey, I think that the deeper you have to go with them, right? It's been interesting for me to reframe this time period of being like, God, this time period is so sacred to me. Like I'm able to really feel my own energy. I'm able to be so selfish with my energy, and I'm able to do the deepest healing that I've ever done in my entire life. Like the amount of healing I've done from almost 2 years ago to now is actually insane. Like multiple plant medicine journeys, like so much inner child healing, so many sessions with therapists and unpacking. Like I think it's really beautiful to be single. And honestly, it's so crazy because I think that society kind of thinks that when you're single, something's wrong with you. It's like, oh, you should be in a relationship. You know, when you're single, you're like, oh, when are you going to get married? When are you going to meet your partner? But like, we come into this earth alone and we're going to freaking leave alone.
I agree with that. And also, we are such like a community-based being. And so it's, again, it just goes back to balance, because I agree. We always say nothing is forever. Everything is temporary.
No.
Everything. And so you do have to be okay with being alone, but we also need that community.
Yeah.
But
There's seasons.
there's seasons, but I do see what you're saying. Like so many people will come up to me and be like, how are you still single? How are you still single? I'm like, why do you care? I'm fine being single. You know what I mean? Like it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But some people do kind of perceive it of like, if you're single, like what's going on?
Yeah. Like what's wrong with you? And I think that what I'm trying to say with the whole single thing is it's a beautiful time. So soak it up, because nothing's fucking forever. Like it's gonna end. No one is gonna be single for the rest of their life. Like just embrace it.
I have a question for you. Is there one thing that you think has helped your like journey of being single the most out of anything else? Or is it kind of like a culmination of things?
Oh, I feel like I had to do a lot of shadow work around being single. Like I think that I had to unpack, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about like being single is not bad, because I think I thought it was so bad for so long, and I had to like really do a lot of shadow work. And I also realized like my mom was never really that single. Like even after her terrible divorce, like she was in another relationship pretty quickly afterward. And even ancestrally, like my mom is from Palestine, and so like she comes from the Middle East, and I feel like that dynamic between man and woman is very much like you have to have a man to be worthy and like worthwhile. So that's kind of come to my awareness as well. But I think that honestly, one of the things that helped the most in like enjoying my singleness was, one, building a life I'm obsessed with, right? Like giving myself the life that I desire to have with a partner, whether that's like with my sole purpose or like with my home or where I live, like not waiting for, oh, when I have a partner, I'm going to have this and that. Like, no, I just give it to myself, right? And I think that that's been really beautiful, because I feel like I've had this conversation with myself. I'm like, if I had to stay single for the next 5 years, which like I don't have any control over that. I might be single for the next 5 years, and that I have to be okay with that. Like I would genuinely still be happy, and I have to build a life where I would still be happy even if I don't have a partner. So I think that's helped a lot. And then I think the second thing is like literally realizing and trusting God. That's the thing, is we think we have control over this, right? We think we know when we're going to meet somebody. We think, okay, if I do this and that and I manifest an XYZ, like I'll meet my partner. But like at the end of the day, we are not in control of this. Like we are and we aren't, right? God is the both and. So it's like we are not in control of like divine timing. There is a reason that this is called the great mystery, because even if you think you know everything, even if you think you know and you know how to manifest and you know how to do XYZ and you're a master manifester, like you can't control when you're going to meet a partner. You can't control when your soulmate comes in, because the truth is that it might be also dependent on their soul's journey, right? If they're getting through a breakup and they need some time to heal, then they can't come into your reality if that's your soulmate, right? Your next soulmate. Not that there's only one. Okay, we're getting pretty, getting down in the depths here. But yeah, so I would say that those two things is trusting God and just building a life that I love and that I'm proud of. What about you? Quick interruption to this episode because I have to tell you something. And what I have to tell you is I'm literally freaking obsessed with doing energy work. This has been one of my favorite modalities that I've added to my spiritual toolbox to shift my energy really freaking quickly. And as you guys have learned in Alignment Academy, this is a vibrational based universe, meaning as your energy shifts, the reflections in your life also shift. People that you're attracting, the experiences that you're attracting, the money you make, literally everything shifts. In Alignment Academy, my membership, part of it is that there are guided energy works added to the portal every single month. And I really want you to be able to experience this energy work because, guys, it literally works so quick. Your reality shifts so quick. The testimonials have been insane inside of Alignment Academy. So because you're a listener of Alignment Academy, I'm offering you a free guided energy work session in exchange for rating and reviewing the podcast. All you have to do is follow my podcast Instagram at Alignment Academy Pod on Instagram. And then after you've rated and reviewed the podcast, just screenshot it, send me a DM on Alignment Academy Pod, and I'll send you the link to download your free guided energy work. During this energy healing session, we're going to be working on your confidence and your self-love. When you are filled with your own confidence and your own self-love, you are magnetic as fuck to the rest of the world. Magnetism is created when we are so filled up with love for ourselves. It's also created when we just really fuck with ourselves super hard. Like, think about really magnetic people. They're not asking other people to like them or validate them. They're just like, I really fuck with me. And if you want to too, then yay. And if not, then it's all good. I can't wait for you to try this energy healing. Please DM me and let me know how it goes. And now let's get back to the episode.
Well, really quick, I also feel like you very recently healed a big men wound.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have noticed a difference with you of still having a little bit shadowy stuff there, and then coming out of Peru and really feeling different, truly.
Do I seem different to you in that area?
Yes.
I feel so different. And God, I'm so grateful for plant medicine. I was telling you this last night. I was like, I'm so grateful for plant medicine because honestly, okay, so this is what we were talking about last night. Natalie was telling me, she was like, it's so interesting to watch you after Peru because you genuinely were over your ex, and I genuinely felt over my ex too. I do not want to get back together at this point. I'm good, but there was still this thing that was lingering.
Yes.
It was just this dynamic where it's there's just something there that's blocking me. And after Peru, and I mean, I told you guys all about it at this point, after Peru, I just feel like it completely cleared it. And I don't know how I would have seen that without plant medicine. It was so deep in my unconscious mind that I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that I'm on the path that I am okay taking plant medicine now. And I just have it as a tool because I really feel like it shifted everything on a vibrational level.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so now what do you think has helped you really be okay being single and just rebuilding your life?
I think the biggest thing is just truly, truly believing that everything does happen for a reason. And I feel like that saying has some controversy because there are shitty things that happen in the world, and I 100% agree with that. But I think it's when you take a very narrow perspective of zooming in on something, yeah, that thing is shitty, but there's such a broader perspective that the universe has. And so it's kind of to your point of just trusting that this is here to help me in the long run. And I always say this is such a cliche because it is, but it's true. Cliches are cliches for a reason. I am so happy I went through this rock bottom because I never, ever, ever would be where I am today without it. And to your point of doing healing when you're in a relationship versus after, it made me think when I was in a relationship, I was going to therapy consistently, once a week. And I was doing work how I knew to do the work. But it wasn't getting me where I needed to be. And then I went through the breakup. I was like, I have so much more to do. And that's when I really, really dove into subconscious. And one thing it made me think of is inner child, shadow work. And it made me think of when you and I were going through it together, we would do cold plunges. We were so depressed that we would literally twice a week, I would say.
2 to 3 times.
2 to 3 times a week. We're like, we just like need to feel okay. So we would go into the ocean in the middle of winter and do Joe Dispenza meditations 3 times a week because it was all we knew to do. We're like, okay, let's get this natural dopamine and then let's like manifest and bring this feeling to us. But it kind of worked.
Honestly, it's so funny because like yesterday we were sitting at a coffee shop and we were reminiscing on, okay, so yeah, 3 times a week we would do Joe Dispenza meditations, then jump in the ocean and do a cold plunge like naturally and then go get a coffee or something. And this is like before work. So like we woke up freaking early for this. Like we were waking up at like 6 a.m. to do this, be done by 8 a.m. Like it was like intense. But it was like we were laughing so hard because like it's December right now and we were doing it last December and we were like, it's so effing cold right now. I would never jump in the ocean. But like we need to get the dopamine that freaking bad.
He literally did. It's like you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah,
we did it.
We literally were so committed to the bit. And I know you guys remember when I was posting about it all the time. I'd be like, ocean cold plunge. Little did you know. Actually, you guys did know, but like I was just depressed as fuck. Like I just needed that. I just needed it. But
we did. But it helped. It really did. Like after we'd be like, oh my God, that was amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's something else that helped me. This is just random and I know we're on you, but I'm gonna just finish this thought. I've told you this so many times is like, you have to put your energy into your purpose. The only thing that's yours when you lose everything is your purpose. And I think that during that time, I also went all in on my business and like low-key, I did 2 times it. Like I invested in it. I put money towards it. I really went all in on the podcast. Like I was like, there is no way he's taking this from me too. He's taken every part of my life. He's taken every part of my identity, every part of my confidence. Like he's not taking my business. And I remember just putting all my energy into my business and even looking at you, like you started your business, like you've found your voice so much. And I feel like I've watched you become so much bigger, like vibrationally, and have a voice and stand up for yourself. And so I kind of want you to speak to that too.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to what I was saying about, my codependent tendencies and really low self-worth that I didn't really recognize that I had at the moment. And then when I realized that, I was like, I have to step into my power. And honestly, one thing that made me realize it a lot is my ex. I looked up to him so much because he had all of these qualities that I so admired. And I realized I admired them because I wanted them for myself. And those qualities were things like confidence, doing the scary thing, adventuring, all these things. And I was like, I just appreciated that in him because I feel called to it in myself. And so it was really looking at like, what do I admire in others and how can I bring that to myself? Really just stepping into how can I, like you said, follow my purpose and do what feels right for me instead of just letting someone else do it for me. I think that's the biggest thing. And it all goes back to the inner child work and the shadow work because you can't just do it and feel so wildly uncomfortable because it's not going to last. It's not sustainable. And so like we were talking about before, doing the scary thing, yes, do that. And also you have to do the inner work along with it because otherwise you just feel like so scared, so terrified. And then you're like, that was terrifying. I'm never going to do that again versus doing the work alongside of it and being like, oh, this feels expansive. This feels good. I feel like open and more myself than ever versus just like, this is scary and I don't like it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like when you're rooted in safety, it feels like beautiful versus when you're rooted in like fear and you're like, oh my God, what the fuck did I just do? Like, I'm never doing that again. It's just like, it's all about that internal state that you're doing it with and almost like the intention that you're doing it with versus like pushing yourself off a cliff versus like doing it to grow. I don't know. It's just a different energy.
It's a different energy. And I will say even sometimes like I'll still do the scary thing and kind of feel myself like shrink a little bit, but I always go back to meditation, going back to that energy internally. And then I just immediately feel better. Like it's such a like teeter-totter I've noticed. And I think I'm slowly, obviously getting to where it's more of like my natural state, but it takes a long ass time. Like it's been 2 years since I've been doing the work and I'm still not like fully there, so it's just slowly.
Well, no one's ever fully there.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I've been doing the work for 2 years and I still have more to go, you know?
It's been actually really beautiful to watch you though, because like you really do the work. Like, just to give you guys an idea of Natalie, like when I met her, you had no online business. Like you weren't able to post online. You were really scared to do that. And I feel like you still sometimes have a little fear, but you always do it. Like you've started your business. You have started posting online, using your voice, posting stories. Like those things were all hard for you at one point. And like, just to give you guys behind the scenes, like I did not coach her, even though this is what I do, like I did not coach her through any of it. Like you took yourself through it. And like, it's been really cool to see you just like do it, like just do it because you have to. So I guess my question is, yeah, like walk us through that.
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing I'll start off by saying is I actually tried to start a business like 4 years ago as a health coach because I'm certified, but I was that person that would post and feel so wildly uncomfortable and then, you know, like erase it or like just like pretend like it didn't happen. And feeling the energetic difference between posting back then versus posting now is so wildly different. And I feel like a broken record, but it's true. It's all in the inner child's work. Like truly.
It really is.
It just is. It just is. And like I said, anytime I feel uncomfortable, I do meditation and I'm like, oh.
Okay, so what do you do in your meditation?
Okay, sorry, I'm being vague.
No. But I mean, honestly, this is what I say too. But like, I'm like, wow, people probably want to know what you do in your inner child meditation. So like,
so I do different ones. There's not like a specific one that I do each time, and it's totally dependent on how I'm feeling at the time. So one is like a worthiness meditation, and I basically tap into like my highest self, a higher version of myself, and what does she feel like? What does she look like? What is she doing? And then also going back to like, what is her purpose? Like, what is her soul's purpose? What is it here to do? And then once I can tap into that energy, it kind of just, I think because it's such like a high frequency, it kind of just makes the rest go away.
Yeah, it's like a higher perspective that you're tapping into when you're in that higher state of consciousness, like the bullshit kind of dissolves.
That is such a good point because whenever I do it, I recognize, oh my God, I was just living in my head. Like it's literally just my brain, my thoughts, just trying to like scare me to keep me safe. But when you take that higher perspective, you can recognize that's just my brain. It's just trying to keep me safe. And there's such a broader way to look at it.
It's interesting too, because when you start to understand how the higher perspective feels in your body, like I can even tell when I'm in a lower frequency by like what I'll think about. Like there's moments where when I was like really still like on the teeter of I feel getting over the breakup versus like over the breakup. And there are even still moments like probably maybe once a month or once every other month at this point. Like when I'm in a really bad headspace, like I will start to care about things that I cared about during the breakup. And you can tell because when you're tuning yourself to the higher perspective so much, you just know how fear-based the lower perspective feels. Does that make sense?
1,000%. And honestly, I feel like I kind of experienced that today, like because I haven't been in my normal routine. I haven't been doing all the stuff I normally do. And I noticed that happening yesterday and this morning. I had such bad anxiety and my thoughts were like, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, da, da, da. And then it's so simple, but literally just a workout. We went to the gym and that changed everything for me. And I will say that's only because I hadn't been doing it in a while, but anything that can get energy moving and just raise your vibration. And then, you know, what's also crazy is like when you do it so often, you tap into that energy so often, you can do it so much more easily. Like today
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
Okay, so Kristen, we're literally just driving and Kristen decides to put on a joke.
It was on because I did a meditation this morning. It was on. Okay, so let me just put that with Steve. Okay, so Natalie needed to sleep in. And so I woke up early just naturally and I did a meditation and it was on my phone. So then we get into my car and a Joe Dispenza meditation is playing. You guys can't be surprised by that, okay?
And then basically it started playing, but you were like vibing to it. You're like, oh, I like this, or so. I don't even know what you said. I was like, okay, I guess we're just like listening to this. And I'm sitting in the passenger seat. I was like, okay, I guess I should do a meditation. And Kristen's driving us to the gym, and I'm literally like in the passenger seat doing a Joe Dispenza.
We're listening to Joe Dispenza on loud in my car. I'm literally
on the highway
to the music, and he's like, open up. He's like, feel it. And I'm like literally just like, I'm feeling it. You know, I'm like driving. I'm like, I'm in theta. We're like feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Yeah. But so what I was going to say is I just tapped into that frequency so quickly, and my body just started vibrating. And like, literally I was like, okay, I already feel better. And then that plus going to the gym, I was like, chef's kiss.
Low key, if you guys haven't ever listened to meditations, like just listen to them while you're driving. Like, obviously don't close your eyes, like obviously, right? But like, it's a vibe. I've never done that. I have to say, I don't think I've ever done that.
That was a first for me.
Yeah, I do some weird shit. But I think too, I've gotten really good, and I think that we should talk about some of our favorite ways, because I think we're both really good at this. When we're in a low state, I feel like we both know how to shift our energy to the point where we can be so diligent around like, I'm not going to actually even go to this like outing. I'm not going to like hang out with my friends until I get my energy primed. So yeah, let's talk about it, because I feel like we both have different things. Like, I know you're really into just like opening your heart right now, doing some heart coherent stuff. I'm actually going to go over some stuff that I used to do when I was like in the rock bottom, because I think that the stuff shifted me the most. Honestly, I used to wake up and put on extremely high vibrational content. Joe Dispenza, Abraham Hicks. What else would I listen to? Like any podcast that would like hold that higher perspective for me. I would literally be listening to podcasts all day, and I know I was very distracting myself, but like I think that healthy distraction is fine when you're going through something that's painful that your brain like won't shut off and you're in like a state of fight or flight all the time. Like I think that distraction is good, but I would do that. I think like our cold plunges really helped us change our state like a lot. Meditation, obviously, Joe Dispenza like literally changed my life during my rock bottom. Everyone knows that. Go back to my episodes about that if you need to.
Yeah, you were obsessed with Joe. I mean, you still are, but you did it every day.
I mean, I had to. Yeah. It was the only thing that made me feel better.
Yeah.
It was the only thing that would remind me that I was creator. And one thing that I actually want to talk about with Joe Dispenza is I remember the moment I heard something during a Joe Dispenza like interview or something, and I've listened to literally every Joe Dispenza interview on YouTube because I would find something to listen to at all times. So just naturally I would listen to I've listened to all his content. I remember when he was talking about, oh my God, it was like so fucking triggering when I heard this. He was talking about somebody going through a divorce, and he's like, yeah, you ask the person, why are they still sad? And they say, it was like my divorce 2 years ago, I got divorced. And he said on the interview, who is worth 2 years of your life? Who is worth that? And I remember at the time, it was almost about to be the 1 year. And I was like, who the fuck is worth 1 year of my life? 1 year of sucking all the happiness out of me. Who the fuck is worth that? Nobody on planet Earth is worth taking your happiness for 1 entire year of your life. And I remember in that moment, I decided, it was like a fucking full body decide, I will not be sad anymore over this. And I think you remember that moment. I think I told you about it. Maybe you don't remember, but I told you about it and I was like, I can't be sad anymore over this. And I remember we also decided we weren't going to talk about it again anymore. We didn't want to talk about it. We were only going to look forward. And another thing that Joe Dispenza said that literally changed my life was if you're stuck in your past, it's because you don't believe that your future is going to be better than your past. So you have to believe in your future more than your past. And I was like, oh fuck, if I really genuinely truly believed that my future was going to be better, going to be a better partner, a better place to live, more abundance, more joy, then I wouldn't be upset about this. I would be okay.
I think that that's the key, because I do remember when you're like, I decide not to let him, I remember you being like, it's almost been a year. I can't be upset about this anymore. And also you can't rush your feelings, you know? And I also
both ends.
I know. Everything's this and that, You don't want to have this person take up that much of your life. But if you still have these grief feelings, you have to face them head on for them to move through. However, to your point, or Joe's point, it's all about changing what you're focusing on. And I will say that is one thing that has helped me so unbelievably much, because you have a choice. Like, obviously you want to live in the now, right? But your brain naturally goes to the future, to the past. And so it's like, when you start going into the past of reminiscing, ruminating, change that right then and there to focusing and ruminating on the future.
Yeah.
That has been huge. What do you want your life to look like? How do you want to feel? Who do you want in your life? Where do you want to live? All the things.
Yeah. And it is a neural pathway. Like, at the end of the day, it's fucking chemistry.
Totally. And we also did a thing when we would be like, whenever we have a thought, we just need to say no.
Like, out loud. Like, no, I'm not thinking about this.
Totally. Because it's your brain, and that's how it naturally works. But that's why it was so helpful to stop the thought whenever you can and then move it to the future, and it changes everything.
Yeah.
Another thing that really changed the game for me was breath work. And I wanted to share that story really briefly, because that was like, it changed my life.
Yeah, share it.
So this was like 3 months after the breakup. I was going through it. So depressed, so anxious, couldn't think straight. I felt like there was a cloud in my head. And I had done breath work one time before, and I actually had a horrible experience. But I was visiting my friend in Mexico, and she was like, you have to come to this breath work session. And I was like, no, I really don't want to. Like, I don't like breath work. And she's like, you have to come. I'm like, okay, fine. And I walk into this breath work session, one person, and I walk out an entirely different fucking human. Like, I will never forget. I walked out and I felt like 1,000 pounds had been lifted from my body. I felt joy. I felt like happiness for the first time since the breakup.
Wow.
And I remember having like this crystal clear, just clarity on like, I needed this breakup because, XYZ, I needed this to happen. This is the start of my new life. Like, I was on this high from a 1 hour breathwork session. And that's when I was like, this shit is magic for me. And so that was one thing that I started doing consistently to like change my state and change my brain, change my energy. After that, I probably did breathwork like once a month. And that always helps me change my state, even today. Yeah.
I love that. I'm not a breathwork girly, but
no, you're not.
Yeah, I actually really don't like breath work. But you know what? I think there's so many modalities out there, and there's not a right one. It's like what works for you, what you resonate with.
Exactly. And that's so important, because we're very similar in a lot of ways. And also, yeah, I love breath work. Like, breath work is probably my favorite healing modality, and you hate it, which, yeah, it's just finding what's right for you.
Yeah. And it's fine. I know a lot of people are gonna be like, well, that means you need it, Kristen. I've heard it before. I don't fucking need it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes back to this and that. Like, everything's a balance.
Yeah.
Like, what do you need to push yourself into, and what do you know, like, that's just not for me?
Yeah. And like, I think that's also too why in the spiritual world, like, there's so many modalities, right? Just go to the ones you resonate. Don't go to the ones that you don't resonate. And like, it is trial and error. Back to our very first point. It's like, it's a little bit of trial and error of like, oh wow, I did this Joe Dispenza meditation and I feel better, and I did this and I don't feel better, and I danced and I feel good, and I, screamed into my pillow, and whatever the modality is that you're trying, like, just give it a go, and what you're meant to do, you're going to naturally go towards. I think the last thing that I want to touch on is really how there were so many times, very specific moments, right? Where like, there's always moments where like maybe you reach out for a holiday, or you don't reach out for a holiday, or you feel like you need to text them for your birthday. And I feel like there were pivotal moments in both of our journeys with getting out of this rock bottom where we didn't get what we needed, we didn't get what we wanted, but we got what we needed. And I think that is honestly just a metaphor for life. Like, I think that life is always going to give you what you need and not what you want. You may really want to stay with your partner forever. You may really want that job right now. But like, back to the higher perspective, you have to remember source God, like, it can see all the timelines. It can see where all the timelines lead. It can see the timeline that you're going to be the happiest, even if right now in this moment, you're the most miserable. And I think that we do that a lot as humans. Like, we're like, our ego's like, no, I want this. But like, we can't see that in 5 years, this is actually going to be the best freaking thing that's ever happened to us. And so I want you to speak, because I know like you kind of just learned this lesson about like when you're having an ego fit moment, when you're like, I do not get why this happened. How do you get to the point where you're like, okay, this is not what I want, but it's what I need?
Number one, time. I just learned that lesson, and it all came from following my intuition. And I think it also goes back to trusting that you are going to be on the highest timeline if you're following your intuition. And it's really learning to, differentiate ego versus intuition. And I had done that. I felt called to do this one thing, and my ego was trying to scare me, like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, what if this, what if that? Intuitively, I knew I needed to, but of course, I didn't know why. I knew what I wanted the outcome to be, but the outcome ended up being something
that was not in the game plan.
Not in the game plan, and it really hurt. And at the same time, like, I knew that so deep down it was something I needed to do. And I think it's such a testament to like following your intuition will bring you what you need,
not always what you want.
But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. Like, because so many people could say like, I followed my intuition and it led me here. Like, it made me feel like shit, so I shouldn't have done that. It's like, no, this is what is supposed to happen. Your intuition is leading you to your soul's path. And I followed my intuition and it led me to feel like shit for a little bit.
Would you be open to like, yeah, because I feel like this story is actually such a good example of like how it's not what you wanted, but it was exactly what you needed.
Okay, I agree. I had been feeling called to reach out to my ex, and it's basically because last time we had spoke, I was very short and closed off and just kind of rude. And that had been lingering with me for a while. And basically it's just because I was hurt. I was like in pain and I didn't want to deal with it, but it had been kind of eating away at me of like, I was an asshole to him and I feel bad. Like, that's not the person that I want to be. So I was like, I'm going to just reach out and be like, hey, I know we left things off on a really bad note. That was my fault. I just want to let you know, like, I hope you're doing well and I would love to be friends. And I said, love to be friends or friendly. And I also was like, I have no idea where he's at. I have no idea what he's doing. So I was like, if you don't feel called or if it doesn't feel right to respond, that's totally fine. I just want to let you know, like, I have so much gratitude for our relationship and everything that it brought me. So it was kind of just like I wish you well. Let's be friends if you're open to it. And I was pretty certain he was going to respond because when we'd first broken up, he was like, let's be friends. Can we please be friends? All these things. And it's funny looking back because I think I had kind of been holding on to that in the back of my mind for years of like,
literally years.
Whenever I'm like over the breakup, then we can be friends. But it's like, that was still a little bit of that codependency of like, I still need him in my life for XYZ. And so he never responded. And
it actually forced you to be fully over him. Like, it was, I feel like the actual final straw where I was like, okay, now you're over it because like you have to be.
Yes. And so I think that it goes back to following your intuition because I had felt called to reach out to him for, I think it was 7 months. And I'd been putting it off because I was like, in my head, what if he doesn't respond? What if he says this? What if he says that? Even though I didn't get the response I wanted, I actually had to close that door because he gave me the answer. He's like, he didn't say anything, but energetically, he was like, I don't want you in my life. And if I had just done that 7 months prior, I would be 7 months ahead of the breakup. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah.
It was such a lesson of like, just follow your intuition because it's guiding you where you need to be, not where I want it to be.
And now you're like so much better for it.
Like, I genuinely am like, yeah, I'm so much better looking for like a new relationship and feel like that door is closed.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
Thanks. All right. Well, I feel like that's a good place to end. For anyone who's going through a rock bottom, what's your last closing words for them?
Really just anchor in yourself. And I think that can be really vague and hard to understand, but like learning what you need and finding a way to give it to yourself is kind of the only way through. And like you said, it's not about learning it in courses and reading it in books and podcasts. It's really learning, what do I need and how can I get it?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for having me. It was so fun. I love you. I'll have all the links if you want to follow Natalie's journey below, if you want to do breathwork with her, work with her. She actually helps women get out of rock bottoms and build that self-worth and self-security inside. So I'll link everything below, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye. Thank you.